He never imagined life could change so violently, so suddenly. For years, he believed he was blessed. Steady job, a small but loving family, a home that carried laughter in its walls. But life doesn't always chip away gently. Sometimes it destroys in a single sweep. It began with a phone call no one is ever prepared for. His company was shutting down, and he was no longer needed. 10 years of loyalty, reduced to a cold sentence. Still, he told himself he could survive this. But before he even found his footing, a second blow struck. His mother, the one who prayed for him every day, fell seriously ill. Hospital visits replaced peaceful mornings. Hope turned into fear, fear into helplessness. And months later, she slipped away silently, leaving behind a void he could feel physically in his chest. Grief consumed him, and bills swallowed what little savings he had. His marriage, already strained, couldn't survive the weight. His wife left, not with anger, but with exhaustion. She whispered, "I can't watch you fall apart anymore." And she walked away. That night, he sat alone in an empty living room, surrounded by the ghosts of everything he once had. Job gone, mother gone, wife gone, savings gone, future gone. He stared at the ceiling with burning eyes and whispered through clenched teeth, "Why, God? Why take everything?" But there was no answer, only a silence that echoed louder than any words. For the first time in his life, he felt truly abandoned by people, by circumstances, and even by God. He didn't know it yet. But this emptiness was not the end. It was the beginning of a journey that would change everything. Days blurred into nights, and his world shrank into a dark room filled with memories he couldn't bear to face. He stopped eating properly, stopped answering messages, stopped believing tomorrow could be better. Depression became a constant whisper in his ear, telling him he was worthless, forgotten, and finished. Every morning felt heavier than the last. Sleep offered no rest. It only replayed the moments he wished he could erase. Failure, loss, loneliness. He questioned everything, his purpose, his strength, even his own worth. What hurt him the most wasn't losing things, it was losing himself. One cold evening, after hours of sitting in silence, he stepped outside just to breathe. He walked without direction, without destination, following the faint glow of streetlights. As he wandered, a small church caught his eye. The lights were still on, even though it was late. Something pulled him toward it. Inside, only one person was sitting, an old janitor sweeping the floor. The man looked up and said softly, "You look tired, son." For some reason, the words broke him. He sat down and, for the first time in months, allowed himself to speak. He told the stranger everything, every loss, every heartbreak, every fear. The old man listened without interruption, without judgment. When he finished, the janitor placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Sometimes God allows everything to fall apart because he wants to rebuild you with his own hands." The sentence hit him deep, deeper than anything he had heard during his darkest days. He walked out of the church with tears in his eyes, but for the first time, they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of longing. A whisper rose inside him. "God, are you still here?" That night, something shifted within him. Not a miracle, not a sudden change, but a faint spark of hope he hadn't felt in months. He went home, sat on his bed, and prayed. Not a long, poetic prayer. Just 3 trembling words. "God, help me." And something happened, not in the room, but in his heart. A calmness settled over him, like someone had placed a gentle hand on his soul. The next morning, he woke with a sense of purpose he couldn't explain. Life was still broken, but he realized he wasn't facing it alone anymore. He started walking every morning, talking to God like a friend. He didn't ask for money or miracles. He simply asked for strength. And strength came, quietly, gradually, but undeniably. The small church became his refuge. The pastor began guiding him. The old janitor welcomed him like a son. Slowly, he met people who listened to him, encouraged him, and reminded him he wasn't forgotten. One evening while praying, he felt something he hadn't felt in so long: peace. A peace that didn't erase his problems, but carried him through them. It was as though God whispered, "You lost everything so that you could finally find me." He realized he had spent his life relying on people, money, comfort, and stability, things that could crumble. But now, God was becoming the foundation he never had, a foundation that couldn't be shaken, broken, or taken away. It was the first time he understood what it meant when people said, "God is enough," because for him, it was finally true. He had nothing left in the world, yet he felt richer than ever. With God as his anchor, he began rebuilding his life, not by chasing what he lost, but by discovering what truly mattered. He found a small job through someone he met at church. It didn't pay much, but it gave him stability and dignity. He started volunteering, helping others who were going through their own storms. The more he gave, the more God filled the hollow spaces inside him. Slowly, his health improved, his spirit lifted, and the darkness that once consumed him faded into the background. People began noticing the change in him. "You look different," they said. "Peaceful, strong, renewed." He smiled, knowing the truth. It's God. He rebuilt relationships he once thought were lost. His wife contacted him again, not for reconciliation, but to apologize for leaving during his hardest moment. Instead of bitterness, he offered forgiveness, because God had softened his heart. He saw miracles in small things, unexpected kindness, answered prayers, doors opening when he thought life was locked forever. Each day became proof of one powerful truth: God hadn't abandoned him. God had been waiting for him. The man who once begged for death now thanked God for life. He didn't get back everything he lost, but God gave him something greater: purpose, faith, inner strength, and a peace that surpassed all understanding. His life wasn't perfect, but it was anchored in something unshakable, and that made all the difference. Months later, he stood in the same living room where he once felt the world collapsing around him. But this time, it felt different, warm, sacred, filled with gratitude. He realized something profound. Losing everything had been the greatest blessing disguised as pain. If life had not broken him, he would have never discovered the strength God placed inside him. If the world had not abandoned him, he would have never learned how deeply God embraces his children. He finally understood. When everything was taken away, God stepped in, not to replace what he lost, but to become more than what he ever had. His past wounds became testimonies. His struggles became stepping stones. His darkness became the canvas where God painted a new beginning. Friends who once pitied him now came to him for advice, asking how he found such unshakable faith. He would smile and say, "I didn't find God. He found me when I had nothing left." He learned that God doesn't always rescue you from the storm. Sometimes he becomes your shelter within it. And when the storm passes, you come out stronger, wiser, and closer to him than ever before. Today, his life is far from perfect, but his heart is full of peace, hope, and a faith that cannot be shaken. Because when everything else was gone, God became his everything. And in that truth, he found a life more meaningful than anything he ever lost.